Yeah. So this is how live we're going to get tonight. For the first time, I actually made notes, so I wouldn't spiral off too much. Okay? So we've been talking about darshana, which is philosophy in the Vedic tradition. And there's 6 orthodox schools of philosophy from the Vedas. And we spoke last month about Vedanta, and before that we spoke about yoga. The next school of philosophy we're going to talk about is Sankya. Now, Sankya is considered to be the oldest of all the philosophies and the original cosmology. In Ayurveda, which is a medical system from India, a sister science to yoga, it pulls much of its teachings from Sankya philosophy. It pulls from all the 6 schools of philosophy, but predominantly from Sankya philosophy. So, thank you, Robert.
Sorry, ladies. Yeah.
It's fine.
There's like 50 kids in Chinatown.
Oh, maybe like for Halloween tomorrow or something, they're doing something.
Maybe they're vandalizing it. Maybe.
So Sankya, just like Vedanta is the philosophy of non-duality, Sankya is the system of enumeration. And through the analysis of cosmology, it attempts to answer our most common and most important questions about life. Also, Sankya philosophy is a creation story. It's not as glamorous as some of the mythology in the Vedic tradition, but at its root, it is a creation story. According to Sankya philosophy, originally there was Purusha. Purusha is pure consciousness. It's just pure consciousness. It has not become anything, it just simply is. And then Purusha, this pure consciousness, seeked to know itself, but it had no way to experience itself. And just like with us, when we can theorize what we would do in a situation, actually we don't know until we're in that situation. And sometimes we surprise ourselves. Oh, I didn't know I would have reacted that way. I never could have imagined I would have done that. And so Purusha seeked to know itself. So Purusha divided itself to create Prakriti. Prakriti is comprised of the 3 gunas. These are the qualities of the universe. And I'm going to take a moment to talk about the gunas because that word is going to come up a lot if you study yoga at all in any way. So the 3 gunas are tamas, rajas, and sattva. A lot of people have heard that word sattvic, sattva, in pertaining to the food that they eat. Practicing yoga is considered a sattvic practice. I'm going to go into detail about what each of these gunas mean, but I want to share with you, because I know how the Western mind works, that none of these gunas are above any of the others. They are all even with each other. And for balance to occur, we must have all of them in balance with each other. It's important to keep this in mind, just like when we talk about in this asana class, we always do a grounding at the end of our practice because we're not trying to float off into outer space, okay? It's all about balance. You still have to live in the real world, keep your feet on the planet, okay? So tamas is considered the heaviest of the gunas. It would translate in English to inertia, okay? And this unmoving, dense quality. Colors associated with tamas are black and brown, grounding heavy colors. And in regards to our food, for instance, anything that grows inside of the earth or close to the earth would be more considered tamasic, generally, with some exceptions. And then in relation to the mind, there is a very common analogy to explain how the gunas are experienced in the mind. If we imagine the mind as a lake, the tamasic lake would look as if somebody had taken a large stick and stirred up the entire lake. When we look into the water, it's very murky. It's hard to see down to the bottom. There's a lot of sediment floating in the water. The waves are really choppy. We can't even see the stars and moon up above reflected in the water at all. It's very dense. It's hard to see through. This is tamas. This is one quality in the universe, according to Sankya philosophy and the other Vedic philosophies. Then we have rajas. Raja is loud sounds, bright colors and lights, the color red, anything that requires action and movement. The rajasic mind would be the sediment has settled in the lake, but it's very windy, and the surface of the lake is very choppy. And so when we look down into the lake, we can kind of see that there is a bottom. We can kind of see pieces of the stars and the moon reflected. We know that there's a reflection, but we can't see it fully because it's still moving and it's hard to get it settled down. Okay? That's rajas. And then we have sattva. Sattvic would be pastel colors, the color white, calming music, mantra, practicing asana, eating fruits and vegetables. These are all considered sattvic acts. And the sattvic mind would be that the lake is entirely still and you can see the entire night sky reflected into the water so much so that you can hardly tell the difference between the sky and the lake. It is completely calm. We see the picture clearly. This is sattva. That goes deeper. There's like different levels of the sattvic mind. For the sake of this conversation, we understand that these three qualities exist in the universe according to Vedic philosophy. So, Purusha, pure consciousness, desired to know itself. Without being able to experience existence, it divided itself to create Prakriti. Prakriti was consisting of the three gunas in perfect balance with themselves. Then, Purusha and Prakriti, being separate, merged together. And by Purusha merging with Prakriti, it caused movement and disturbance and imbalance in the gunas. From this, they say, came a big bang. That's actually really what it says in the Vedas. And they say that sound was Om. And all creation spun out from this sound. From Purusha and Prakriti merging together. All creation came into existence according to Sankya philosophy. Then, Purusha and Prakriti being together designed the 24 tattvas, which are principles or realities of the universe. And this is what all of Sankya is based on. So the very first thing that they had to establish were cosmic laws, things that the universe would abide by. In the gross sense, we're talking about the laws of physics, the laws of chemistry. And in the subtle sense, we're talking about karma and the effect of illness and disease. So Purusha and Prakriti, according to Sankya, designed these laws that the universe was going to operate by so that it could sustain itself. And these laws together as a whole are seen as the intelligence of the universe. And we call that Mahat. Mahat, the intelligence of the universe, these laws. Gravity, chemical reactions, cause and effect. This is the very first thing that was designed so that the universe could continue to be the universe and continue to be expanding. After those laws were established, they needed to create physical matter. And in order to do this, they had to create the sense of separation. Because in reality, we're aware so far that actually everything has just been Purusha, this pure consciousness. Purusha created Prakriti, which was the three gunas, merged together, created everything. All of these laws have come from really just Purusha. But to know itself, it had to create the illusion of separation. And so it created what we call ahamkara, which translates most closely to the ego. And this is what sustains us. If we didn't have ego, we wouldn't go to work. We wouldn't get food. We wouldn't take care of ourselves. So it's important to know this in the Western world, that the ego is not a bad thing. We want to be in the middle path. We want to be feeding the right type of ego. We want to be balanced. We want to rule our ego rather than our ego ruling us. So we create mahat, these cosmic rules to abide by so that the universe can continue to exist. We develop ahankara, the ego, which gives us this sense of separation, with the concept that through individual experience, Purusha will come to know itself. So this is one of the fundamental things about Sankya philosophy that it tries to answer. This really common question, why are we here? What is the point of life? Well, what Sankya philosophy is saying is that the point of his existence is for us to know ourselves. And in the grander scheme, for Purusha to know itself. In the concept that rather than the universe being a collection of organisms existing together, which it appears to be, actually the universe itself is one mass organism, according to Sankya, and we are experiencing different aspects of it. And this plays into this common concept in physics right now of the multiverse, that every possible experience is happening all at once, simultaneously, continuously, forever. That is what Sankya philosophy is also saying to us. For me, this made sense in the way that I could take some solace knowing that if I was experiencing something difficult, once I experienced and knew it well, on behalf of the entire organism, I knew it, and nobody else was going to experience. And in the same, when we see people around us suffering or going through something hard, according to Sankya philosophy, we can think to ourselves, thank you for doing that on behalf of all of us so we know what it's like to be in that space. Thank you for sharing, going through that experience so we understand what it is, and I see you and I witness that you're going through that. And now we know how we would react in that situation if we were exactly you at that exact time in that exact situation. So we can think about it that way when negative things happen. We can kind of have compassion to ourselves and those around us that, well, now we've experienced it and we know who we are, and so that's benefiting us. And then on the other side, we can also think in a different way of, well, somebody has to experience having an amazing life. And we can kind of think, oh, I really want to do this, but I don't think it's going to work out. Well, it has to work out for somebody. Somebody has to have that experience. Somebody has to have a red Tesla. It might as well be Lois.
Thank you, Lois.
Thank you for doing that on behalf of all of us. It's very meaningful. I was going to step up, but you got it. So. I'm trying to, it's fine. I'm working, I'm playing the long game. So this is what Sankya is really trying to depict to us, is why are we here? What is the whole point? And according to Sankya, it's so that we can experience every possible experience conceivable so that we can know exactly what we would do in every single situation. So then we know ourselves. And we see this in our own lives when we do things and we react in a way that we weren't expecting. So we have merged with Prakriti. We have set up these cosmic laws, Mahat. We've created this sense of separation, developed Ahankara, the ego. Now we can start building the universe. And we need building blocks to create matter. And so then Purusha and Prakriti together developed what we call Pancha Maha Bhutas, the 5 elements: ether, air, fire, water, earth. That's it. They say that even in the Vedic tradition. They started just with these 5 elements, and that everything in the universe was going to be built with these 5 elements, and each one of them would have all 3 of the gunas, the qualities within them, and that was what all existence was going to be built on. After we developed those 5 elements, we had to develop the potential for sensory experience. They say potential because, as we know, our eyeballs aren't what see. It's our brain that sees. Okay? Our ears aren't what hear. It's our brain that hears. It's what interprets it. These are just potentials, the potential to see. That's why there's really no such thing as objective information, because something that looks blue could look green. Something that sounds like one thing could sound like something else to somebody else. So first we develop these potentials to have a sensory experience with the concept that having a sensory experience and then having motor organs to move through the world, this would enable us to understand existence. This was the thought process, evidently. And we call this the tanmatras. We have sound, touch, sight, taste, and smell. These were these 5 things that were going to enable us to experience the universe. So they developed that, the potential to have this experience. And then to go with it, next they designed the 5 sense organs that were going to enable us to have this potential sensory experience. We call this Janedriani, Pancha Janedriani, the 5 Janedriani, or it's also called buddhi. Buddhi, which is also another word for part of the mind. So mostly people say Janedriani. Buddhi means intellectual. The concept is that our sense organs enable us to develop our intellect. So we have the eyes, the nose, the tongue, the ears, and our skin. This is how we're experiencing things. After that, they had to develop our organs of action. How are we going to move through the universe? How are we going to respond to our sensory stimulus? So they developed Pancha Karman Janedriani. Karma means action, as we talked about a couple classes ago. We have the ability to excrete, we have the ability to procreate, we have the ability to walk, we have the ability to hold things, and we have the ability to speak. That's what was given to us, and with this, we're supposed to master the universe. Alongside all of these capacities, the sense organs and the actions organs and the potential for a sensory experience, we needed something to process all of this information. So we were given the mind. We call this manas. Manas, the mind. And they say that manas is an agent of ahankara. So this sense of separation, the ego, developed the mind. It works for the ego. The mind works for the ego to help the ego understand its experience in the universe. And in this way, they say that's why the mind is limited, according to Sankya philosophy. It's limited in that it will only enable us to experience the universe through these sense organs and these action organs, but not in the grander scheme. It's limited as if to not overflow or destroy the ego. Because if the mind was unlimited, we just know that we were all already one. It would destroy the illusion of separation, thus rendering the whole simulation void. It wouldn't do us any good. We would realize that we're all just one, and then we wouldn't be going through the struggle to find our way back to one, according to Sankya philosophy. That is why the mind is limited. So to review the 24 tattvas, we have Prakriti, which is the 3 gunas. We have Mahat, these cosmic laws. We have Ahankara, the ego. We have the 5 elements, the 5 potentials of sensory experience, the 5 sense organs, and the 5 organs of actions. And then we have the mind. The 2 other tattvas are Purusha and Atma. Now, those aren't counted in the 24 because everything is Purusha. And Atman is also Purusha. We talked about this last month during the Vedanta class. Atman in the Vedic tradition is the word for soul. As we said, and we were talking about Atman is the soul that is aware, and Jiva is the soul that is unaware. But they are both ultimately Purusha. There isn't a separation. It appears that Atman is its own soul having an individual experience, but according to Sankya philosophy, actually it's really just Purusha. And in Vedanta, we call that Brahman. We were talking about last month, Brahman Satya, this concept of the all-prevailing consciousness. It's the same as Atman, the word for the soul. But India likes to keep you on your toes, so there's like 50 words for every one thing. So Atman is the soul. And really, Atman is Purusha. And the concept is that Atman, the soul, is inside of you witnessing the act of creation. For me, not a teaching, but for me, that meant that every experience that I had, the whole purpose, whether somebody else witnessed it or not, was that my soul witnessed it. My soul witnessed that experience. And that information is now there. And that's the concept in Sankya philosophy, is that Atman is present inside of everything that exists, basically just recording everything for Purusha, sending the information to this all-prevailing consciousness, according to Sankya philosophy. So we had talked about how in Vedanta, the word that we use is Brahman for this all-prevailing consciousness. In mythology, because there's a really beautiful pantheon of mythology in the Vedic tradition. And allegory was a very important thing in ancient India because it is a fantastic way to ensure that stories keep being told. To just sit down, and we talked about this the very first philosophy class about Jnana Yoga, the yoga of the intellect, sitting down and studying, that it is the most difficult path of yoga because it's boring. To just sit and receive a bunch of information and say, oh yeah, that's why the universe exists, cool. So they make it more beautiful. They have created all these allegories. There's this huge book, the Mahabharata, that contains everything. And in mythology, Prakriti and Purusha coming together is what we call Brahman, this all-prevailing consciousness. And the three gunas, this tamas, rajas, and sattva, are represented in the trinity of the Vedic tradition. And this is Brahma, which is different than Brahman. Brahma is the creator, and he has 4 heads. You may have seen pictures of him, and he represents the sattvic aspect of the gunas. And his consort is Saraswati, the goddess of knowledge, and supposedly she is who wrote the Vedas. Okay. Then we have Vishnu, which is representing Rajas, the guna of action and movement, and Vishnu is the sustainer. Vishnu is who many people in modern times will worship in whatever different forms. He has 10 incarnations on this planet. They say the last one was the Buddha. Before that was Krishna. Before that was Rama. And it goes on. And supposedly there's one more in the future that's coming. So he's very popular in modern times as a source of worship because supposedly he is the allegory of how we sustain ourselves. He represents action. And the guna associated with him is Raja, which is important to understand because there's this book, the Bhagavad Gita, which is the story of this radical war that happened on the planet Earth when Krishna was on the planet Earth. And it's 18 chapters. It's a piece of the Mahabharata, and it's an interesting holy book because the whole book is just a war. And it's a source of controversy for a lot of people because this is a very important book to a lot of people in the Vedic world, and they use it as a source of spiritual inspiration, but the entire book is about a man realizing that the most merciful thing he could do is go to war with the people he loves. And it's a very interesting read that maybe one time we will get into. But I share this with you because this represents Rajas perfectly. That it's not good or bad. It's just action that sometimes has to be taken. And sometimes things are not black and white between what is good or bad. We really have to just act and stick with that action. And that's what Vishnu is representing. And then we have Shiva. The consort to Vishnu is Lakshmi. And she's the goddess of beauty and fortune, and just very popular. Very, very popular. And we have Shiva, which is the destroyer. And Shiva is associated with the guna tamas. Shiva's consort is Parvati, Durga, Kali, Shivakami. She has many names because she's the mother of all, supposedly, in the pantheon. The reason Shiva is very important, and in the West it translates to the destroyer, the god of death. But really, according to the Vedic tradition, Shiva is one of the most compassionate gods. And through destroying, he alleviates humans of much suffering. There's a story that when Brahma created the world, he was very excited and he wanted to show everyone, and he wanted to show all the other gods and demons and everybody, oh, look at this world that I've created. Look at these humans. Aren't they magnificent? And Shiva wanted to know what was going on. He has a temper. He's known to have a temper. The second he saw the planet Earth, he was furious with Brahma. He said, why would you create a world where humans are suffering? Why would you create a place where there is so much suffering? And he couldn't wrap his head around it. And he became very mad because he's a very compassionate being. Remember, this is all allegory. And they actually had a huge battle. And it's a very beautiful story, actually. And eventually, Shiva calms down, as he always does. And Brahma explains to him the whole purpose of existence, which we have just talked about with Sankya philosophy, and how he's enabling all of existence to know itself through our human experience. And then Shiva comes to observe the humans and grows much love for them and introduces the ability to destroy the things that are difficult for us, to destroy the things that bring us suffering, to destroy life so that life can be born again. So this is how Sankya philosophy translates into the beautiful mythology and how the stories got handed down. So you can see the very cut and dry philosophical cosmological side of it, and also the tapestry of the mythological side of it. And then in Tantra, which Tantras are Vedic rituals. And in the Tantric tradition, Purusha is considered to be Shiva, and Parvati is considered to be Shakti. And they're supposed to represent the male and the female. They were always one. But by becoming separate, they were able to experience passion and come together again. Supposedly, that's the whole point of existence, is to feel separate, to crave to not be separate, and then to find your way back to not separate, according to the Vedic tradition. So according to Sankya, this concept of who are we? Every creation is an aspect of God, according to Sankya philosophy. Everything just is Purusha. It's this divine consciousness. Where did we come from? According to Sankya philosophy, we are a manifestation of pure consciousness and pure potential when they collide. That's what all of existence is. Pure consciousness and pure potential coming together and into existence. Why are we here? Because we crave to know ourself. Because we crave to deeply understand ourself. according to Sankya philosophy. Where are we going? According to Sankya philosophy, the whole purpose of life is to come back into unity, to, through the limited mind, dissolve the illusion of separation and merge back with the ocean of consciousness. Just like when we exercise or study or do something that is quite difficult. We could just get plastic surgery. We could just Google it. But sometimes we challenge ourselves and we restrict our senses so that we become stronger. This is the same concept. We are putting a restriction on ourselves to see what we're really capable of, according to Sankya philosophy. And where we're working our way towards is being beyond that illusion. How do we get there? According to Sankya philosophy, all of life is a continuing process of learning how to gain knowledge, learning how to integrate knowledge, and learning how to be that knowledge. So the whole point of life is to come to know yourself more. And then when you know that different things about yourself, actually bring that into your life. And then let those things that you've learned about yourself and brought into your life cause you to evolve into something else. This is like this whole cycle. And they say that when we continue to act from a place of serving ahankara, serving that ego that is meant to serve us, when every time we act to serve it, we intensify that illusion and we build karmas. Karmas are not good or bad. They can't be. It's simply cause and effect. Karma has no judgment. So you can acquire good karmas or bad karmas. It's just cause and effect. But every time we're acting from a place of serving ahankara, even when it's in the positive way, we are still developing more karmas and keeping ourselves tied to this cycle. When we start realizing that we ourselves, it's the same concept in Vedanta. According to Sankya philosophy, when we start truly understanding that we are God, that we are this all-prevailing consciousness, that that's all that is and ever will be, and we start acting that way, we stop building karmas. And we come into a place where we realize that we are the spirit and that everything is, according to Sankya philosophy. And then when we are in that state 24/7, the walls of separation just dissolve and we merge back with the ocean of consciousness. And the cycle begins again. According to Sankya philosophy, that is the whole point of this universe. Is for us to feel alone, to not want to feel alone, and then to find a way to feel unalone. Just so we can know ourselves, to know how we would react in a state of separation and in every other state. So this in a nutshell is Sankya philosophy. And sometime we'll talk about Ayurveda, I think. And this will be good information because it'll give Ayurveda explains in very much detail how to maintain health and balance in the body. It's a very phenomenal medical system, and it's built on these principles of the cosmic laws, karma, and how to maintain balance in ourselves and the whole purpose of life. Any questions?
That was a lot.
Yes, this is why
How to process all that.
I've never taken notes before, but all the other classes we run out of time. So I was like, I'm going to keep things on track by putting bullet points for myself.
I feel like the universe is getting closer. It's getting so bad eventually. We have to be reborn.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's the, what do you call it? The story before the
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
You said that we do a grounding at the end of
Yeah.
Okay, so you also said earlier, I believe, earlier on in my training, that meditation was meant to happen after yoga.
Well, it depends. The best time to meditate technically is 1 hour before sunrise.
Okay,
The second best would be after yoga and pranayama,
so that
or asana and pranayama.
you mentioned that the grounding is to keep you from flying.
Yeah.
So if you're going to meditate, would you meditate while you're on your way up, or are you going to meditate after you ground?
It depends on the individual. That's an excellent question. So you're asking, we usually, in my asana practice, we usually ground afterwards. That's not traditional. A lot of, if you go to other asana classes, they might do that ending exercise from feet to head rather than from head to feet to give you that extra on cloud nine feeling. I think we're all kind of spaced out, so that's why I do it in reverse. But if you were going to practice asana and then do some pranayama, some breathing, and then you were going to sit down and meditate, then when I practice, I don't do that final relaxation. My meditation is the final relaxation. And for me, because I'm a space cadet, I ground and I do chin mudra down. I do a ground, I'm doing a meditation to go into myself. There are other meditations, chin mudra up, and you're going up and out of yourself. I'm going to tell you right now, it's the same thing. You go far enough down, you're going to be looking at the top of your head. And if you go far enough up, you're going to be looking at the inside of yourself. So it doesn't matter which way you go. But knowing which way is going to enable you to walk in this dimension also is important. Because we've all seen that, where people are either very dense in the materialistic world and have lost all ties to the spirituality, or we see people who have no feet on the ground and live in the spiritual world and have a very difficult time operating in the material world. We are always striving for middle ground. That's how you have to know yourself. Because my individual experience is that I need grounding. And your individual experience may be that you need uplifting.
The secret to life is balance, right?
100%. Yeah. Secret to life is balance. What I was going to say to you, Ruth, is it's a beautiful observation that you're saying things are kind of intensifying in the universe right now. And so in the Vedic tradition, there's this concept of the 4 stages. It's similar to like the Greek and Roman, you know, the Iron Age and the Bronze Age and the Gold Age. It's very similar. And supposedly right now on the planet, since the birth of Krishna, we have been in what's called Kali Yuga. Yuga is the time period. Kali Yuga is the darkest, it's the Iron Age. It's the darkest time in the cycle of time for the universe. And supposedly, we're at the tail end of Kali Yuga, about to shift into Dwapara Yuga, which is the Yuga of transitioning back towards the light. Not the golden era, not the golden time, but we're rounding a corner according to Vedic tradition. We're coming into right now. And I know people have been saying that since like the 60s and 70s, like, oh, you know, like changes. It really is. I think that's not a teaching. That's my personal, I want to differentiate between a teaching and my personal thoughts. My personal thought is we really are rounding a corner right now. And it's fabulous when we are able to be aware of that, when people around us continue to operate in a place of, not in a derogatory way, but ignorance, because they know it well and they hold on to it. And when we know, oh, we're rounding a corner, I'm not even going to troll them. I'm not even going to leave a comment. I'm not even going to get into an argument about it. I'm just going to keep scrolling because I'm not going to get sucked in, because I know we're rounding a corner. And also I have compassion for them because somebody has to live that existence. And it might as well be them and not me. Even though we're all one. Any other questions?
So
No, it's all you, Lois.
if there's a text, because you say all these names,
Yeah.
I don't know what they are.
Yeah.
You know, so I'd like to have
Yes.
I could read
Yes.
and identify.
Yes. So everything that we're talking about comes from the Vedas, which are the oldest written texts on the planet Earth, allegedly. And they have been, some of them translated, some of them supposedly are lost, some of them have only been passed down orally, but there are other texts that are less old. The Viveka Chudamani, I think, is from like 890 current era, written by Shankaracharya. And I have a copy at my house. I got it in India. You can look at it. And most,
So I think, I don't know, maybe
but it'll explain
like
things.
those key words that you used in this.
Mhm.
I can think of them already because I don't know how to pronounce them. Those
Yeah.
words, if I can see them in writing.
Yeah.
It's almost like I want to have.
Yeah.
No, that's fine.
I'll post notes. I'll post notes on our group.
Okay.
But also, yeah, same. 100% same. Haha. So, and we had discussed this the first philosophy class when we were going over the system of yoga, and I thought about it, and I thought, because I went to an Eastern college and I went to a Western college. I learned Eastern medicine and I learned Western medicine, and the way that they teach is completely different. I mean, it's night and day. Like, Indian textbooks are not chronological. They categorize things. It's whatever. It's mayhem. It's completely different. I will tell you that the things that I learned in that way of teaching have never left my brain. And everything I learned in the Western way of teaching, I constantly have to brush up on because now I'm a teacher at the college. And I constantly have to brush up on it. And so when on the first class I was thinking about it, and I actually consulted Robert, so blame him. I was thinking about, how do I want to teach? Do I want to make a, do I want to make a handout? Do I want to give it to people? Or do I want to teach in the way that I was taught, where it's just like a bunch of information thrown at your brain and slowly some of it starts getting digested? And we had also spoken about how with Sanskrit specifically, because it's not just a language of meaning, it's a language of energetics. And over time, you just start knowing the words. I know that sounds crazy. But if you keep coming to my weird class, you'll start being like, oh, I remember that word. It starts getting in your brain. And the mantras. The mantra we do at the beginning of Asana class is 5 verses. I guarantee people who've been coming here are kind of like, it gets stuck in your head. So, yes, I will write things down for you. I'm happy to. The doshas, yeah.
There's only 3 of those. Everything else is like 5s.
Yes, well, because the doshas, which are also called prakriti, your constitution, each one of the doshas has 5 of its sub-doshas. So each has 5 doshas. Let's do a class. I have a license in Ayurvedic medicine. We could do a class on that.
I looked at that and touched it, and I got pissed off.
Because you're pitta.
Well, yeah. And I can't have tomatoes and
Yeah.
sauce because I'm fiery, and it
Yes.
just really, so I said, screw that.
Yes. You're bringing up a really beautiful point. And I'm really glad that you're saying this, because the Western mind, which is basically the mind of the planet, even in the East, okay, now, current times, this modern mind loves to compartmentalize and make things black and white. Do this, don't do this. Because we are lazy and we don't want to think critically. And it's important to not get fundamental, especially with Ayurveda and yoga philosophy. What does it mean to you? When you eat tomatoes, how do you feel? And it's also there's not just your prakriti, there's your vikriti, which is your imbalance. So sometimes people's vikriti is so strong that their prakriti, you can't see it. And so it's not as black and white as, oh, I have these, and so I shouldn't eat this. With some people who have very serious illnesses, I would say that. I would say definitely please avoid this and definitely start doing this, probably. But for most of us, middle ground is key, and the intention behind it is the most important thing, which means if you like eating ice cream and your practitioner told you never to eat ice cream, and then once a week you eat ice cream and you spend, I don't know, 4 or 5 hours beating yourself up about eating ice cream, that's what's going to make you sick. And yes. So it's important to have that balance and have moderation and have self-discipline without punishment. We're not martyring ourselves. We're not beating ourselves. But that is how most people operate. Exactly what we're talking about, which is why stuff like this I think is important. Yes. Yes. Because that's kind of what we're taught growing up, right? That's kind of what we're taught growing up.
I was wondering if anyone had seen the
Mahabharata, yeah. Yeah. No, it's fine. You're fine. I'm not trying to be rude.
Peter Brooks did this play, and it's about the wars and everything.
Yeah.
It's 9 hours long.
Yeah.
And he did a film of it also.
The film, from the 80s, that like old school film.
Well, that one too.
Yeah. We could watch it all together. It's really bad, like production quality, but it gets the point across.
And it's 8 hours long?
It's like 9. I think it's like 6 DVDs. It's yeah.
But then I think Peter Brooks did one too. After
What?
the play.
We can Google it.
It's shorter, I think.
No.
I'm pretty sure.
I really very much enjoy mythology. Mythology from India I know the most about, but I like world mythology. But, you know, when I have been thinking that so November is going to be our last philosophy class of the year, which we're going to kind of tie things all together then. And then December, we're not having one because of the holidays. And I was thinking in January of how we were going to change gears and maybe do storytelling, because I do know a lot of the stories from the Puranas, and I like to, because you can see how this is very difficult, because you're like, okay, what is that word? What does that mean? It's hard to digest. Yes. The reason I like the Puranas, all the stories, is because they're allegories. And so it's the same like the Gospels, it's like that same, it helps you to kind of,
Like the
yes,
parables in
yes,
the Bible.
yeah,
Oh, okay.
it's the same. So it helps you to understand it better.
Someone just said to me the other day, I just don't get, what are these stories and all these different versions of these stories in the Bible, blah, 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 blah. And I said, but see, you already haven't forgotten them because of that.
Yeah.
Because you remember stories because they're more tangible, they're more real.
And it is quite magical how anywhere you go in the world, origin stories mirror each other.
Right, no.
How much more proof would you need for it to be truth than for everybody to come to the same conclusion? It only legitimizes it. People say it delegitimizes. Oh, that's just that story rewritten and that story. It's like, no, dude. They didn't have email back then.
No, they were together.
Okay? They all came to that conclusion on themselves. We all came to know that. Exactly. Thank you, Ruth. Exactly. Yeah. Any other questions? Yeah, it's over. Ooh, I have a special treat for you guys. Stand by. Eden helped me do this.